YouTube. Had this thing out for a really good test drive the other day. Took it down the interstate, drove it for about an hour, and went it through some pretty good conditions, some heavy driving conditions with it. And when I got back, everything was fine. The engine was at temperature, and it was kind of hot, but I could walk back into the garage about 20 minutes later, and these two injectors out of the top of the rail were just spewing gas everywhere. So I had to disconnect or remove the filler cap from the gas tank, and it stopped siphoning like that. These are the Box 3 injectors, and they're not quite as tall as the OEM style, and I hate to replace them and go back to original equipment. But even if I replace these O-rings, you know, you can see there, that thing is seated. It's not going to work, not on a 1989. From what I have read, the 1989 fuel rail sits slightly higher than the ones previous to it, and these Bosch 3 style injectors are just a little bit shorter. They've corrected that supposedly on the bottom side with 2 O-rings instead of 1. That's not where I'm getting my leak. I mean, both of these were spewing, which tells me that even if I replace the O-rings, we still risk failure. And if it had done that when I was driving down the road, it probably would have caught the whole damn car on fire. So what I have done is I have ordered more injectors. The original OEM style we will put back in. I don't have the clips. I broke a couple of them, but they're not really necessary, especially if you get the correct size injector. Looking at that now, it looks like there's a crack in the injector, but I can't really tell. No, that's just junk. It wasn't a crack. It's definitely coming from the O-rings, and if you twist these at all, you can unseat your O-rings and they will leak. You know, these were running fine until I just really drove it, you know, as a daily driver, or what I plan to do with it, and I don't trust them. I'm not going to trust them. Be very cautious with them, and I don't recommend them. The original clips won't even work on these. They don't have the seat for it. Another thing, the thermostat control I showed you on the last episode, the block sensor was definitely the wrong size from Rock Auto. Don't order that. I've got an issue with mine. It's supposed to have a pretty complicated cooling fan system where it goes to the ECM, and if it's over 55 miles an hour, it will shut the fan off, it will do this, it will do that. I'm actually missing one of the relays that I think was mounted there at one time. And I think even though I've tested out my plug and everything comes out right, we've got all our powers to all the sources and seems to work right, I cannot make this fan system work on the original. I don't know if it's not talking to the ECM. I'm sure it's not without that. So what I've done is I've ordered the adjustable thermostat controller that has a temperature sensor that goes in or against the radiator, and we're going to try that. Okay, I have ordered the OEM spec original remanufactured fuel injectors, and I also found the clips. They're hard to find. I lied earlier. I said I wasn't going to use the clips, but you can get them on Summit. Holly makes them that'll work for these, just so you know. And a lot of the stuff that I'm using, I'm not condoning that it's good or bad. You just kind of stick with me and see how some of these things work, like the thermostatic control fan controller that I had to send back. The bolt on the block sensor was about 3 times as big as what that system had, but Rock Auto in their system shows that it'll fit. I wrote them a letter and explained, you know, they should probably look into that so other people don't go through the same thing. But we're going to have to take our manifold, our plenum back off and get back down to our fuel rail. And I'll save these injectors and probably use them on a different project. You can use these on Fords and stuff too, and that's probably what we're going to do there. and I was going to show you my roadkill test drive fan controller that I used the other day, and it's just a couple of wires. It is a fused link, but when I hit about 205, I'll just twist those wires together going down the road. But that's what I've had to do to this point, because I can't wait to find a separate system that works. I could probably run down and track down this other relay and get it all right, but the thermostatic controller that I've ordered too has a temperature controller on it, so I can adjust the temperature. That to me is important. This thing runs so freaking hot. It was probably 90 something degrees yesterday when I was riding, even in the evening. You can feel the heat from the exhaust and stuff just radiating through the floorboard on this thing. They're meant to run that hot, but we're not going to run it that hot. And another thing too, I've got to do the bypass on this. Putting the antifreeze coolant through this heats it up so much you can't even put your hand on this. That's not good. You want cold air coming into your intake. And we're getting blocked air on our air intake too. There's a block there. I'm going to actually cut access where it can get more air in front of the radiator there. It's not going to affect it that much. It should put more air into our original air box. Plenty more to do to this car while I'm waiting on parts. And I know y'all are tired of seeing this. No headlight in the side. I've just been test driving it during the day. We're getting to the point where it is close to daily driver status. Yesterday I should have recorded the test drive. Oh, it did so well. This thing's got loads of power. After we put the NOx sensor back in and a new oxygen sensor, it's a whole different monster. It was running in loop mode, pretty sure. So we've corrected those issues, and this thing, if you hold it down, and these are 22-pound injectors, just in drive, when it hits second, it will spin the rear tires, which to me is very impressive. But I'm going to take it easy today. I'm just going to put my headlight in here, and you can see where the old bezel was. It just broke apart. They're real lightweight metal, and they're not easy to find, and they're not cheap. I found mine, I think I said in an earlier video, on eBay, and ordered it. It was a used one, but it's good. To replace your headlights on these, you can use this little dial, and you can move your headlight back and forth. You've got 1, 2 bolts there, I see, and there's one over here that you have to raise it up. It's a screw that will have to come out as well, and there's also one on this side, or they're supposed to be. So you have to kind of put your headlight in that position to get your retainer ring off. Pretty much all the screws and stuff I'm taking out of this thing, they're pretty rusty, pretty dirty. So what I generally do is I just put them in a magnetic pan, and I'll use brake cleaner. Let them soak a little bit, and then I'll wipe them down real good. And then these screws on those headlights are exposed so much, I'll put anti-seize on when I put them back, just to make sure I can get them back out. But you've got your 2 bolts on the side that you have to bring it up to access, and then your hex bolts here, and this whole assembly will come out. And this thing is dirty, dirty, dirty. I'm going to try and clean it up real good before I put it back on. And from this side, you will install the headlight upside down, so when it comes around, Sylvania will be pointed the right way. You can use that as a reference to find top from bottom. But I WD-40'd or liquid wrenched all the little retainer screws real well, so we can get them out next time. And this is my retainer clip. You can see the bottom and top is offset, so there is a top and bottom, and the closer togethers go on the top. Put it back together from there, and it's easy as that. And now we've got these cleaned up real good with brake fluid, and I've come back across on them and put a little bit of aluminum anti-seize on the threads. They were in there tight. You definitely don't want to have to drill one of these out. It's a fragile area anyway. So we'll put our bezel back on with those. These screws you want to put back in and tighten them down first, because it will set where your headlight cover needs to be. And these hex screws right in the front, it kind of gives me an idea of where they need to be. And when you've got it all back together, just take your dial over here. And I've got problems, my gears are slipping in there. You can see it there. See, they're not catching. I'm going to have to replace the gears in these. Take it to about right there. And then we'll test them. And okay, show you what I'm talking about. Turn our headlights on and see what's happening. She's trying, but she ain't quite making it. But what you can do, that one's getting bad, but you can pull them on up and they will work. It's about the same as this one. Close back fine. And they opened fine that time. So, but that's tilted, I think, with the hood down. There was a screw in there. It had slipped through though, so I just put a little washer on it. There's enough clearance there; that won't bother anything. But we'll go from there and put the hood down and see how well the headlights are aligned. Got the hood down. Let's see if they come all the way up. Even with them not coming up here, yeah, neither one of them are wanting to. You kind of help them if you have to. But yeah, that one is going to be sitting low. Until I replace that motor. Other than that, and this one is definitely brighter, so we're going to have to upgrade this one at some point. I'm not really worried about it at this point. You know, we can drive it at night if we have to, and I plan to do that. But this thing here has got a linkage issue. I'm going to have to make or adjust for the linkage. Go down. They don't want to come up. That one did finally. It's better to do it if you can get around here. If you know you got that problem while the motor's still running, that way you're not running stress on the motor when you hand open them, but you can do that. I'm already getting that one dirty again with my hands. Close, no problem. They don't want to open. So for now, when I cut my headlights on, I just have to get out of the car and help them. And then those gear motors in there, I've seen this on YouTube, they're plastic, but there's an upgrade gear dial in there that will outlast the factory plastic gear, and it's a metal gear, and that's what we'll end up doing. But then you can, I can't remember the YouTube site, but it's on there, the details on how to remove these headlights, and it is fairly complicated to do it, but probably not if you've done it before, which is everything with this freaking car. The reason I wanted to do this video and get it out, we didn't get much accomplished today, but again, we're waiting on parts, was to let you know that do not order that thermostatic control from Rock Auto that has the block sensor. It will not fit a 1989 Corvette. The Bosch 3 style injectors that I got from Injector Connection, they may work on 88, 87, and back to 84, but on an 89 they will not work. The fuel rail mounts just a little bit higher, but that's what I wanted to get out to you before you emulated what I was doing. I'm not condoning any of these parts, and I'm learning as I go. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get something out of it. Do not buy the things I discussed with you. They won't work on an 89.